Hello, everyone. My name is Lieke Ploeger, and I'm directing the community program of the Disruption Network Lab. And I'm very happy to welcome you today to our final community panel of our 21st conference, Borders of Fear, Migration, Security and Control. And this conference was curated by our artistic director, Tatiana Bazzichelli. And in this weekend's conference, our speakers have been discussing forms of persecution and border control in relation to refugees and people with a migration background. And we have also heard directly the voice of migrants and refugees themselves and reflected collectively on forms of social justice and discussed politics of fear and how migrants and refugees are stigmatized for political propaganda and how technology also plays a role in this. So this morning, as part of the community program, we just finished a workshop on critical tools for counter-investigations with Dimitra Andreitsou of the Forensic Architecture, and there will be a final workshop with the Migrant Media Network on the 1st of December. But this afternoon, it's time for the community panel, Creating Safe Passages, where we will discuss efforts to ensure safer migration options. And just a short reminder that if you're joining our chat, you can ask any questions also to the speakers there. Then I'm very happy to introduce also the moderator of today's panel, which is Mikhail Roof. He is a writer and director of documentary theater plays, and his productions include Asylum Monologues, Asylum Dialogues, NSU Monologues, and the Monologues of the Mediterranean Sea. And they have been performed more than 800 times by a network of several hundred actors and musicians. So we're very happy to have you with us, and handing over to you, Mikhail.
Thank you so much, Lieke. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to do this moderation. I'm very happy that we have three great speakers. Those speakers are Thomas Kalunge from the Migrant Media Network, Regina Catrambone from Migrant Offshore Aid Station, and Mattea Weihe from SeaWatch. We'll start in a few minutes with this discussion. Before that, it's also a pleasure for me to show a little excerpt of my theater play, the Mittelmeer Monologe. The play is usually 90 minutes long, and we'll see now 5 minutes, German with English subtitles, performed by Gina Marie Hudson. For this play, I did interviews. I only shortened those interviews without adding anything. So it's a word by word or verbatim theater. So I would like now to show this video, please.
Ich weiß nicht, wohin ich will, aber ich will nicht in Meeresnähe bleiben. Ich habe gesehen, wie die Menschen ins Meer fielen und ertranken. Wenn ich unter der Dusche stehe, dann sind die Erlebnisse aus dem Wasser sofort wieder da. Ich habe das Gefühl zu ersticken. Ich habe Angst vor dem Meer. Ich heiße Naomi. Ich bin 27. Geboren wurde ich im Westen Kameruns in Banjul. Ich spreche Banjunesisch. Man nennt uns Bamileke. Ich sollte 5 Tage vor der Abiturprüfung gebären. Das Abitur war wichtig, um eine Ausbildung machen zu können. Meine größte Angst war, im Schulraum zu entbinden. Meine Tochter kam um 21 Uhr zur Welt. 3.400 Gramm. 50 Zentimeter. Daphne. Und dann meinte meine Tochter immer, Maman, ich will ein Motorrad. Ein Kindermotorrad für Zweijährige. Ich habe alles getan, um es ihr schenken zu können. Schwarz-rot. Schöne Form. Mit Motor. Sie musste eine Pedale drücken und das Motorrad fuhr. Ich musste sie nur lenken. Sie liebte das Motorrad. Es wirft mich in meine Vergangenheit. Ich wusste nicht, dass man es bei Frauen auch macht. In der Schule spricht man nicht darüber. Es gibt eine Organisation, die Beschneidung bekämpft. Schon wenn ich daran denke, geht es mir nicht gut. Ich will nicht darüber sprechen. Ich fühlte mich nicht mehr sicher. Mein Ziel war, einen Ort zu finden, wo ich mit meiner Tochter leben konnte. In Frieden. Wir, 3 Frauen, gerieten in die Hände von Rebellen. Sie wollten uns verkaufen. Wir fuhren in einem Auto, wo die Fenster abgedeckt waren. Du siehst nichts. Sie brachten uns nach Libyen. Uns wurde gesagt, dass wir in ein Lager gebracht werden. Wir wurden aber zum Strand gebracht. Das Boot war nicht stabil. Viel Regen. Sehr hohe Wellen. Ich hatte Angst. Ich wusste nicht mal wovor. Meine Tochter sagte immer zu, Maman, mir ist kalt. Maman, schau, wie müde ich bin. Ich wusste nicht, was ich ihr antworten soll. Ich trug eine Rettungsweste. Da ich aber das Gefühl hatte zu ersticken, habe ich sie ausgezogen. Ein Mann zog sie an und weigerte sich, sie mir zurückzugeben. Das Boot zerbrach in 2 Teile. Dann kamen die Wellen. Sie haben uns getrennt. Ich sank, tauchte wieder auf. Ich kann nicht schwimmen. Ich sah das Kind nicht. Verzweifelt schaute ich mich um. Ich wusste nicht, wohin ich trieb. Ich sah nur Köpfe im Wasser und hörte jemanden schreien. Ich wusste aber nicht, wen. Ich habe mit den Beinen gestrampelt. Ich habe versucht, auf mich aufmerksam zu machen. Jemand zieht mich aus dem Wasser.
I'm sorry for that. Okay, now you can hear me. I'm very happy that we have now a great panel discussion with 3 speakers who have a lot to talk about that topic. And we structured the discussion in a way that first we have 20 minutes for each person, and then we do a more open kind of a discussion. And you can also then ask questions to our speakers. So I want to start with Thomas. Thomas, thank you so much for participating. Can you introduce yourself and your activism, your work first, please?
Yes, thank you very much for Disruption Lab for inviting us to this conference, and also for partnering with us in dealing with this topic, especially on migration and the borders of fear. My name is Thomas Kalunge. I originate from Kenya, born and raised in Kenya, but I've been living in Germany for over 10 years now. Since 2017, we have been working on an information campaign to talk with people in rural areas of Africa about safe migration and positive alternatives, with the aim of telling people that that they should rethink migration, and the migration to be done in a way that they understand what alternatives there are and what may come across when they decide to migrate through the various ways that are there. So thank you very much for this invitation, and I'm looking forward to a very fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thanks for participating. You also brought a video, which we will see right now. Do you want to say a few sentences before we see the video?
Yes, please. So this video is showing the various activities that we are doing in Ghana. So the project, the pilot project has started in Ghana, where we are arranging some roundtable discussions, which we usually call Stammtisch, and they take the same format as you could think a Stammtisch is, especially if you speak German. So whereby a Stammtisch is a group of people who know each other, who come together to take some drinks and talk on various topics affecting the community. And this particular setup we picked for the MMN project to make sure that it's not somebody coming from outside telling the young people how to understand migration, but rather it is the young people taking time to understand what is migration, how does it affect them, and what are the various ways and how do they consume information that is shared on social media. So it deals, the MMN, the project is going to deals with an information campaign on ethical use of social media and how to evaluate and consume information shared on social media, may it be on migration or other topics on hate speech, entrepreneurship, all around topic. So please, as you watch and you have some questions, feel free to ask them later. Thank you so much.
My name is Wedam Kadwaruda, and the local coordinator for Migrant Media Network project in Ghana. Migrant Media Network is a project by Rock Agency for Open Culture and Critical Transformation. The Migrant Media Network provides young Africans with reliable information and training on migration issues and social media to make informed decisions and be aware of safer migration options to Europe. The Migrant Media Network promotes youth entrepreneurship at home as a way to build economic and social resilience, encouraging youth to create their own opportunities and work within their communities. We do this through workshops, outreaches, face-to-face interactions, Stammtisch, roundtable discussions, and interviews, as well as focus group discussions. The tools we use for our workshops are the field guide, the hierarch box, and the USSD system. The local coordinators interact closely with local potential migrants to increase engagement and create awareness on dangers of irregular migration and assist mitigate rumors, lies, and fictitious information in regarding migration. Also, mitigating propaganda, hate speech, and misinformation on social media in regard to irregular migration.
This initiative aims to assist people in making informed choices about migration by engaging members of the Ghanaian diaspora in social media sensitization, providing offline tools to disseminate information in remote regions of Ghana, creating a network of trainers in remote regions of Ghana, mitigating propaganda, hate speech, and misinformation on social media, enabling an informed decision-making process in regards to migration to Europe. The MMN Hierarch Box is a mobile, portable Raspberry Pi-powered offline mini-server for facilitators to use in remote and offline environments where access to both power and internet is challenging. With the Hierarch Box, multiple users can access the MMN materials, including the full contents of the field guide, along with a multitude of further open educational resources. The MMN Migrant Media Project uses the USSD system to provide people in Ghana who are thinking about migration to get informed. The system is important as it informs free of charge on regular phones without internet and in a manner which is well known throughout the country.
Insight into your work. Your work contains many different topics. So let's start maybe with the topic of the misinformation. To what kind of misinformation in regard to migration does your work try to react?
Thank you very much for the question. So what we do is, first of all, I would like to put a disclaimer that in the project we do, we don't talk about the migration, that we don't try to tell people, please do not migrate. That's not our work. In most cases, we told them, yes, if you choose to migrate, be informed on various things. What we realized since I've been doing research and with the team since 2006, there has been an ongoing misinformation and disinformation, especially from the human smugglers, about the ease and the difficulties of migrating towards Europe, using what we call in many African countries the backdoor migration. So while some people need and require to move, the information they usually have on how easy it is to move to Europe is not always the truth. And so we make sure that while these people are choosing and rethinking about migration, that the information they use or the information they have is validated by telling them that not everything that you read on social media is necessarily true. Yes, it can be true, but it is not always the same and not always that way. So usually it is the information on migration, which in many cases can come from even human smugglers.
And how does your information campaign or your educational work exactly look like?
So what we do is that we usually bring people together and try to create a conversation about how do they understand social media posting or messages from relatives and friends. And we ask them, how do they validate that information? How do they know, for example, that that in Libya there is no human abuse? Because many cases it can be actually in Libya there is no human abuse. That is information from the foreign government of EG, Germany, in order for people not to migrate. And so we try to tell them, when do they get that information that there is no human abuse? They say they were told by people who migrated. But then we try to connect them with real information, sometimes even from organizations like Mediterranean, Sea Life, who have posted things about what is really happening in Libya or what is happening in the Mediterranean. So we try to mitigate that by showing them on-ground information about what is really happening. And this information, we try very much that it does not come from any government organization, so that we make sure that we are getting the correct and right information.
And you told me yesterday that you organize discussion rounds where you speak about that issues. How exactly do these discussion rounds look like?
Yes, as the name suggests, the Migrant Media Network is connecting usually various people. We connect the diaspora, we connect the returning migrants, either they have been returned voluntarily or have been forced to return. We connect the potential migrants, and each of these people have stories to tell. So because they have stories to tell, we create a particular way of them to be able to exchange and talk to each other in a time that we either use social media or we organize workshops in Ghana, for example, where these particular individuals come together and exchange through experiences and stories. What do they understand on migration and where do they get the information?
And you also spoke about the human rights abuses in Libya. How do you and your organization consider what the European Union is doing in the Sahel countries?
So one of the things we have come around is that directly and indirectly, unfortunately, the European Union and many of the European governments have outsourced the border and migration management. They outsource the border and the migration management by supporting various initiatives that are supposed to limit people mobility in these particular areas. That means they support, for example, the Niger government to make sure that they make much more control of people transiting through Niger. Now, well, Europe may sometimes say they don't know what the government does with the money they give them, but they quite well know that that money and this particular training the soldiers get in the name of anti-terror training, it's really used to discriminate mobility for people moving from the sub-Saharan Africa towards Northern Africa and maybe to Europe. So we really, although we don't deal with this topic, but we talk with this topic in conferences like this, where we say this is a discriminative way of handling borders, and Europe should be managing the mobility of people by itself and taking the responsibility of making sure that human dignity and human life is valued and respected undiscriminatively. As it is right now, it is unfortunately still discriminative for some people.
And how exactly come that migrants are looking for more irregular routes of migration then?
Pardon me, how then?
How come that migrants are looking, after what you just said, looking for more irregular routes of migration?
So in one of the workshops we did with the Disruption Lab, we were talking about the invisible barriers in the countries. So one of the invisible barriers is that the visa application processes, even for legitimate reasons of travel, are very strict for some countries. And they are so strict for some countries without any information being shared by the people applying for the visas. So when the person comes out of the embassy or of the consulate who was applying for a visa, he is going to meet someone outside the embassy who tries to convince him that the particular government, the particular country does not want him to go, and that's why the visa application processes is that difficult. So this, due to the very difficult application processes, even for people who are legitimately coming for education, for job, for treatment, or whatever reason, these people sometimes feel that even applying for a visa does not help because the restrictions are so high. So you see there, but they are promised by the human smugglers that their processes are much simpler compared to those of the government. So in many cases, due to lack of information, due to very restrictive visa application processes, people pursue or try to get these other methods of traveling, which of course are dangerous and sometimes very discriminative.
And is that something you speak in your information campaign or in your discussion rounds about? And if so, how?
So one thing we try to tell people is that we, as the Migrant Media Network, we don't have the capability, neither the power of being able to change what some governments do. We can do that by attending conferences like this, bringing awareness to what is happening, but they should be aware that in case they come to Malta, to Italy, to whatever these countries, it is not going to be easy. It is going to be difficult for them. And if they land in Libya, it is not guaranteed that they are going to have an easy transit to Europe. So what we do, we tell them, yes, there are these particular laws and regulations that are maybe and probably discriminative towards them, but they should be aware of that. And when they are aware of that and they choose to travel, then they don't travel because they are not informed, but they travel because they have considered all the alternatives and chosen that alternative as a means of travel.
And when you do those discussion rounds in a country like Ghana, for example, and you tell what you just told me, how are especially the young people reacting to what they're hearing?
It is true that sometimes you tell someone and they say, I will travel anyway. So there are those people who say 50% of that is enough chance for me. And there are those people who say, given this information, I would rather stay and pursue other means of either going abroad in the regional areas, that is either in West Africa or in Africa, where sometimes traveling can be restrictive, but at least you are sure it is not much very discriminative. And of course, there are people that, besides that information, they are still ready to travel.
Right. Like I said, your organization works on many different topics. Another topic is that of data protection. Can you tell us a little bit about the question? In what way do migrants entering Europe have the same data protection or not than people who have grown up in Europe?
Unfortunately, they don't have the same data protection like other people. And if you look at research, you're going to see that especially migrants from developing countries, they have really difficult time on even being informed on what rights, digital rights, do they have. So if you are migrating irregularly, and I'm sure my colleagues in the panel are going to be confirming this, the data in your mobile is collected without even you being informed that what this data is going to be used for. And so there's so immersive data that is collected, and this data you are not asked, or you are not given consent of why is that data being collected and what it is going to be used for. Well, when you're migrating from some other countries, you even may land into Europe without necessarily having a visa, and you can apply for it later. So then the application of data governance laws are very discriminative, and they are usually very discriminative, unfortunately, to people from developing countries. The right thing to do is informing them what data is being collected, for what purpose is that data being collected, and do I have the right to be forgotten like every other EU citizen? And that is unfortunately not done.
Okay, so you described the problem. What is your organization trying to do? What kind of steps are you trying to do to combat this discrimination in terms of data protection?
Unfortunately, we are not doing anything on that because until now we have been focusing in Africa on informing the people of what is happening, and we have not really been in the lobby or the activist part of making sure that the policymakers are aware of that. But I personally am in various other initiatives and groups where I talk about this problem openly, with the hope that the policymakers and decision makers listen and understand that there are particular human rights breaches that are being done, and that shouldn't be looked at and, where possible, dealt with.
All right. What I find quite interesting about your work and your organization is that you have offices in different places, in Ghana, in Berlin, and also in other places. My last question for this first round would be, how exactly is the work of those different offices connected, and where do you see the advantages, of having, colleagues in different countries?
So one of the overall things the Rock Agency does is the access to information and knowledge, and also using particular tools for peace building. So most of these other countries that our offices, places where our offices are, we deal with the aspect of access to information and knowledge and peace building. So by connecting these particular individuals in each of these countries, the people are, especially the residents of those countries, are able to share information, they're able to share knowledge, and they're able to learn from each other on disinformation, misinformation, and peace building in their respective countries. So we try to connect them and make sure that the solutions that are created are local solutions, in many cases, for a global problem.
All right, thank you so much. For now, we'll come back to you. We'll have the possibility to ask more questions later.
Welcome.
But that was already very, very interesting. Thanks for your contribution. I would like now to come to our second speaker, which is Regina. Thank you so much for participating to you as well. Regina, can you introduce yourself and the Migrant Offshore Aid Station to start with, please?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody, to have me here. I'm the co-founder and director of MOAS, Migrant Offshore Aid Station. Was born in 2013. My husband and I created this organization when in the 3rd October 2013 there was this horrible shipwreck out at sea. Shall we try to start with the first slide? So there is a bit of description there and I can explain. So when we created MOAS was because over 368 people died at sea that day. And this is one of the first picture when in 2014 we started with the first mission. The mission was sea mission and aerial mission. You can see in the backs of this picture, the first ship that we used was a Phoenix with on board 2 drones for search and rescue. We were the first organization that decided to go out at sea to look for people, for people in distress, migrant and refugee that were taking these unsafe boats to find safety in Europe. The mission was composed by, as I say, a naval asset and aerial asset. The drones were used for search and rescue. We were the first organization to use drones out at sea, humanitarian organization, because we believed that earlier we could arrive to this to the area of distress, and earlier we could exchange this information with the Italian Coast Guard. Faster people could be rescued. This doesn't mean that as we spotted the vessel in distress, we were the ship that will rescue the people, but this information was shared. We continue with the search and rescue out at sea until 2017. We worked in several seas. Our motto is nobody deserves to die at sea. And when we talk about sea, we do not talk just about the Mediterranean Sea, but we talk also about the Aegean Sea, where we worked in 2016 for several months before the agreement between Europe and Turkey happened. We rescued so many lives there. Also, we worked in the Andaman Sea. In 2015, following the phenomenon of the ghost boat. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but in 2015, many people, many Rohingya stateless people were leaving Myanmar to trying to find rescue in a country, in neighbor countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Bangladesh. They were living through using some boats, fishing boats. Many people died in these fishing boats because they were pushing, the country were pushing them out at sea. So MOAS went there in 2015 to document and understand this phenomenon for several months. We stopped our mission, we put on hold our mission at sea in 2017 after we signed the code of conduct of the NGOs. We were the first organization to sign them. However, when you see something in paper, is completely different and when you apply this code of conduct, because even if we believe that the information need to be shared with all the actors out at sea, because this is what we have done since we start, you can understand that through our mission, that was not just a sea mission, but also was an aerial mission. When our information, when our pictures and video were shared with the Libyan Coast Guard, we felt a bit uncomfortable because those images could be used for a pushback. So basically, Libyan could go out at sea and capture the people that were searching, were escaping from there. So we strongly believe on the principle of non-refoulement. So we believe and we know that Libya is not at the moment a safe country. In fact, the Libyan people that are escaping Libya, they receive the refugee status. So, because there is a war in Libya. So, if it's not safe for the Libyan, for sure cannot be safe also for the migrants. So, this is a very easy 1+1 addition. So, perhaps we can move to the second slide. About the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea, we believe that, MOAS believe that the situation in the Mediterranean Sea changed. 7 years passed from the shipwreck of Lampedusa. MOAS rescued over 40,000 people between Mediterranean Sea and the Aegean Sea, coordinate and cooperate with all the assets at sea, NGOs, military vessels that were often deployed by different countries. We cooperate with the mission Mare Nostrum and many other missions out at sea. However, we are after 7 years, people continue to die at sea. 982 people died only in 2020, and over 77,000 people arrive in European shore this year. Most of them arrived independently. As we know, one of COVID-19 sometimes has been used also as a deterrent of this arrival. And we know also that very clearly that the situation has been quite awful out at sea. In a pandemic alert, for sure, abandoned people out at sea is completely inhumane. Also, if we think that we need to try to raise our safety and control more the people that arrive, this is quite a countersense, because how can people arrive out at sea without be checked, without be assisted by an organization, an NGO, or Coast Guard? We know that Frontex awards over 100 million euro contracting drones to patrol the Mediterranean. And not just to spot the migrant at sea, they're trying to do the crossing, but also to control their borders. So we understand that this year there will be such heavy control, heavy flight out at sea. I really hope, as we suggest in a few days ago, and the Shared Med, where we sit from several years, the Shared Med is a round table that Frontex, EUNAVFOR Med with Mission Irene this year was explained their mission. We strongly suggest that this is not just for control, but is also for search and rescue. We know that the European new Pact of Migration and Asylum does not mention SAR. Search and rescue is not mentioned there. And we really do not understand why, because as an international organization, MOAS is registered. I'm Italian, but I live in Malta from several years. Our organization is registered in Italy, in the UK, in Germany, in Malta, in the United States. We strongly do not understand why if migration is now has been very well documented, why there is not a clear search and rescue operation, and most of all, a clear disembarkation protocol. That is very important, and this I wanted to stress because search and rescue doesn't stop with the people on board, rescuing the people on board, but the safe rescue will end in a safe port. So this is very important. Until the people are on board of the vessel, they are safe, of course, but the mission finish when the people are disembarked. Can we change slide, please? I would like also to talk about the UK channel because it's very important. We have been seeing that over 5,300 people have crossed the English Channel this year, and there is an increment compared to the other years. The rise of this, the increment of this crossing has been quite important because we believe that in view of the restriction of the COVID-19, the safe and legal routes, especially the resettlement, family reconjunction from France, for example, to the UK, shrunk very much. The route between France and the UK is quite deadly. Many people died at sea. Just in October, 2 children were among the 4 people that died in these routes. Can we change the slide, please? I would like about Bangladesh. Since 2018, when we continue to do our advocacy and safe and legal routes campaign, MOAS also went back in the Bay of Bengal. And in 2017, following the big exodus of almost 1 million people, the Rohingya people, from Myanmar to Bangladesh, MOAS used the vessel Phoenix to deliver 40 tons of food to the government of Bangladesh at the port of Chittagong to help them with this increase of people that were moving from Myanmar to Bangladesh. I want to stress on the number of 1 million people, maybe more, because I remember very clearly, because I was there, that even if this was a very large number of people that move from Myanmar to Bangladesh, Bangladesh left their border open. And that is a big lesson that with a lot of humility, I think Europe should learn. Because Bangladesh, we know that is not a rich country, but didn't close their doors and didn't use the word invasion, a word that has been used many times in Europe when we face 10,000 people, 20,000 people arriving on our shore. We implemented in 2017 two primary health care. In 1 year between 2017 and 2018, in the area of Cox's Bazar, Shamlapur and Unchiprang villages, we managed to treat over 90,000 people between host community, so Bangladeshi people, and Rohingya people. In 2019, as the need of primary health care reduced drastically, we decided to implement our flood and water safety training course. And thanks to our partner IOM and the UNHCR, we managed to train almost 2,000 people. This is very important because in a situation like Bangladesh, a country like Bangladesh that is very subject to flooding, people very often lose their life, especially children. We were very happy also to extend our training course to women. We always trying to empower women. So can we change slide, please? We also create a COVID response in Bangladesh. Since March 2020, we implemented an eco-friendly masks, and today we produce over 883,000 masks that have been distributed among the community through our partners. This helps a lot to the livelihood because many women and many men, thanks to the production of these masks, sewing physically these masks, were able to bring food on the planet, their families. We purchase locally all the material and we helped sew the local business. Can we change slide? We also helped in Yemen and Somalia. We decided to extend our operation in bringing food and medical supplies in Yemen. Yemen, I don't think that need a presentation. Unfortunately, there has been a prolonged crisis in Yemen and in Somalia, and the pandemic made this crisis even worse. Many people are starving there, especially children. So we facilitate, we brought there several tons, 103 tons of nutrition aid. And for the first time in 2020, we also managed to deliver 25 tons of famine relief product in Somalia. Can we change the slide, please? I was very glad to hear from my colleague Thomas, that was before me, his work, and I probably will contact you later on to understand in private more. We really believe that one of the problem is misinformation, but also the lack of safe and legal routes. MOAS have been started this advocacy call since when we were out at sea. We believe that there is a lack of understanding of this mechanism, but also even if we have at the moment safe and legal routes, as also Thomas was explaining, I was very glad that he was talking about the visa application, because this is one of the topics that with MOAS, with this petition that start as an Italian petition, but then we want to expand in Europe and all around the world. Few weeks ago, I was in Matamoros, Mexico, at the border between Mexico and the United States, Brownsville. And even there in Matamoros, I saw that this safe and legal routes that is very needed. There is a very unclear pathway of how to apply for these visas. And most of all, this mechanism of visa, like study visa, refugee visa, medical visa, working visa, sponsorship visa, are completely rusted. So, as MOAS said always, we need to work together to try to move ahead, to trying to talk with the governments, with all the European governments. So I really hope that today you will check our website and you will all sign our petition, and we will come together in a more broad discussion, perhaps in another discussion, because we believe that borders of fear can be destroyed if there will be legal pathway, safe pathway for all the people that are trying to make this crossing. And people that are trying to make the crossing that are 0 minutes. So people that are trying to make this crossing that are in search of a job or in search of happiness, in search of a better life, they shouldn't be seen as invasor. They shouldn't be penalized. They shouldn't be seen as some ugly or bad people. They are normal people like us. They're just born in a different part of the world. So I thank you, everybody, and I conclude my speech.
Thank you so much, Regina, for this very comprehensive overview of what you and MOAS is doing. There are, of course, also to you a lot of follow-up questions. We'll come to that in the second round. First, we now go to Mattea. And Mattea, also thank you so much for joining, for taking the time to participate. Mattea, could you introduce yourself and SeaWatch first, please?
Of course. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm looking really forward also to the discussion later, and thanks for the 2 presentations already. My name is Mattea. I am saying hello from Berlin. I am now today a spokesperson of SeaWatch. I started a couple of years ago within the organization as a cultural mediator, so I have been on board in that position, and now I'm mostly in the office, let's say. My background itself is more in migration research, especially in the Sahel area, so I come a bit from that background, and now one of over 70 employees of SeaWatch already, so I'm really happy to be here, and I'm excited to start the presentation. So, shall we continue? Okay, perfect. I was just going to say a couple of things in the presentation, and once it is done, I will continue to talk a little bit about the current situation. I thought it would be nice to give everybody who's watching a bit of an insight of how we are working in an operational level. Once this presentation is done, you will then probably see my face again, and I will continue to explain to you a bit about the current situation that is happening with our assets, and also how we work as an organization at the moment. So SeaWatch is basically been founded in 2015 due to a couple of various reasons. There has been, of course, also the issues just mentioned before, but also the end of the Mare Nostrum mission in the Central Mediterranean Sea. And for us, it was very clear that we saw ourselves as an activist group that would go out and basically fill in a gap that has been made, or that has been left by the state authorities and state actors, because they all removed themselves from rescue missions in the Mediterranean Sea. So the big goal of SeaWatch has always been to stay there for as short as possible, to fill this gap as good as possible, and then to actually all go back to our jobs. Nobody ever thought that 5 years later we would still be in the Central Mediterranean Sea. And instead of having a better situation, it actually got way worse. So we're continuing to fight to actually, remove ourselves from the Central Mediterranean Sea, but we will only do that if rescue capacities are there, if nobody has to die anymore while fleeing over the Central Mediterranean Sea, and until there is legal and safe escape routes. Next, please. Thank you. So this is what I said. Basically, our vision is that, of course, for us, it is clear that it is not a Europe that we want to live in, where people have to die while they try to reach European shores. So for us, it is very important that not only on our operational missions, we actually take action for this, but also in the back office, we have campaigns, advocacy work, etc., that is aiming to actually really influence the European migration policies and actually demand safe passages, and then also the right to rescue. The right to rescue has to do with the current political situation where rescue ships are being hindered to actually do their job, which is absurd in itself. But for us, it is clear that no NGO or no actor should be kind of held back if they want to engage in rescue operations in the Central Mediterranean Sea. For us, it is clear that we demand freedom of movement. Everybody should live, go, and work at wherever in the world they want to. And this is what we're fighting for every day, with more over a couple of hundred activists and a lot of employees. Next, please. So for us, there's a couple of legal frameworks that are obviously important, such as other SAR NGOs, so this is not really specific for us, but also specifically for all the NGOs that are involved in search and rescue. So it is clear that you have to assist people in distress, so there is no way around it that once you find a boat in distress, as a captain, it is your duty to render assistance, and there is no way you can kind of circumvent that law. So this is something that is also, of course, one of our main legal frameworks. We also argue that, of course, every person has the right to seek and enjoy asylum. So for us, it is quite clear that a safe port, a safe place where people can be disembarked to, can only live in can only lie in the European Union, because it is clear that every person that actually wants to seek asylum should get the right to do so on the European shore. And then also, it was mentioned before, the non-refoulement principle is one of our main legal frameworks. So the non-refoulement principle means that basically no person is allowed to be brought back to a place where he or she might face torture, human rights violations, or other forms of violence or discrimination. So this especially has been one of our main things that we're arguing, that actually the European governments are breaking the non-refoulement principle by engaging in pushbacks to Libya, for example. But I'm sure we will have that in a discussion later. Next, please. Thank you. So for us, of course, it is also very clear that a rescue can never be completed until people are disembarked in a place of safety, which, again, as I said, lies for us in the European Union. Until that time, for us, it is clear that this rescue is still going on. And this is one of our most important things. So there is no way we will ever bring back a person to Libya, for example, or other places. This also is due to the fact that Port of Safety needs to make sure that people actually are provided with basic care, that they have protection that they need, that they actually have access to basic needs, medical care, etc. Yet again, as I already mentioned a couple of times, Libya is one of these places that is not a place of safety, that is not a place where people can be brought to. There has been a lot of discussions about this topic. However, the European Union continues to actually participate in these illegal pushbacks of people to Libya. And this is something for us that we are, on the one hand, in our operation fighting, and on the other hand, with all our power and advocacy and media campaigns and all these different other areas, we continue to call out European states who actually are engaged in these kind of criminal activities. Next. Thank you. So this is our ship at the moment. This is the SeaWatch 3. It is about 50 meters long. It is one of 2 ships that we currently have. It can hold a crew up to 22 people and has been active for a couple of years. It is currently in the shipyard in Borriana in Spain, where it gets ready for the next mission. For the last couple of years, we've been sailing with this ship where we were engaged in different, of course, rescue operations, but also legal difficulties. I will continue about that later. Next, please. Thank you. And there we go with the SeaWatch 4. This is just going to be a couple of images so you understand basically with what current assets we are working. The SeaWatch 4 was brought and basically in coalition with the coalition United for Rescue, which is basically an organization where a lot of partners, over 600 by now, come together and basically stand up to fight against the repressive European migration policies. And this ship is currently in the port of Palermo in Sicily, where we hope that we will soon sail out again. And next. There we go with our Moonbird. So Moonbird is a airplane that we have. We have currently 2 airplanes where we cooperate with HPI. So with these airplanes, one of our also very important works is to actually monitor what is going on in the Central Mediterranean Sea, to collect data, to call out responsible people, and to actually make sure that once distress cases, for example, are being localized, that they are being followed up by state actors, by commercial shipping actors, etc. And then the next. This is the Seabird. So this is the second airplane that we have. So it's now 2 ships, 2 airplanes, which is quite nice. And the Seabird is a plane that has been bought because it can fly longer hours. It just has more fuel capacity, so it can stay out longer, which also means that once, for example, we visualize a rescue or a distress case, we can then fly to another one and then come back and have basically a bit more time. It holds a crew of 3 to 4 people, and it's currently also getting maintained, but will fly soon. And the Moonbird is currently ready to fly as soon as the weather gets better. So next. Perfect. So I will just show you a bit of more quicker pictures because I just wanted to let you know how we are working in an operation. So this is from ship's perspective, which is due to my experiences. I'm more on the ship's operational side than on the airplane operational side. So I hope this is okay that we focus on the ships instead of airplanes. But yeah, I will just basically show you step by step a bit of the operation, how it goes and how we are working at the moment. So we start off with actually having sharp lookouts. That means for all our activists on board that everybody is engaged in, shifts of lookout, and also we watch the radar, etc. So basically the mission usually starts with, once we're in the search and rescue zone, with actually making sure that we always have an eye on what is happening in the Mediterranean Sea. And next. And once there is a case, this can either happen because we've seen it ourselves, or because there has been of course, an official message by the RCC, so the Rescue Coordination Centers, or we've seen it on the radar, etc. What we usually do is that we launch 2 of these fast boats. We attach a lot of life vests to them because usually people that we encounter do not wear any life vests. And then we make sure that we arrive at the place where we see the boat, or where we located the boat, as quickly as possible, because in our experience and everybody else's in the search and rescue organizations know that each minute actually really counts. So this is why we have these 2 fast boats. Next. Once we actually encounter the boats, what we're doing here, and this is basically a perspective of the culture mediator, this is Heidi who is in front, we usually first make sure that everybody on board is okay, that the boat is stable, that we don't have too much problems in regards to stability. We check for medical cases, we check for babies, for women on board, so we can actually prepare on the main ship the rescue. Next. And there we go. Then we provided everybody with life jackets because, as I said, this is one of our most tasks in the beginning, to make sure that actually every person wears a life jacket so nothing happens in the meantime. And then we get ready for a transfer. So that means that we, again, of course, with official information and official contacts, we asked to transfer the people. And then we can go to the next image. And then this is how we do it usually, that we take the people in smaller groups on these fast boats, where we then transfer them to the mothership. And then we can see it in the next photo, how they get basically transferred onto the ship. And once they are on the ship itself, basically we have a team that is there to take care of them. So we have designated people who are, of course, nautical, but then also medical. So here we have the hospital that we can see, where we have doctors and paramedics that are waiting for the medical cases. So we make sure that everybody gets treated the way they can get treated. However, of course, if there is bigger medical cases, we try to evacuate them as quickly as possible, because, of course, such a hospital, as you all can understand and probably imagine, is very limited. And then on the next image, we basically would then disembark the people after we've looked for or we've asked a place or a port of safety, which is then assigned to us by the authorities. And then when we disembark them safely, we usually prepare for the whole next mission. And then that means that we disinfect all the life vests, that we restock the ship, that we change crew, that we do psychological debriefings with everybody, that we reassess and evaluate actually how the mission went, what do we need to do better for the next one, etc. So there's a lot of things that we then need to do. And then you can go to the next slide. Perfect. So this was just to get an idea of basically how we work in an operational side. And now we can close the presentation, and I'd like to just continue a few more sentences about our current situation. So at the moment, we're facing a bit of difficulties because for us, we have now 2 ships that are actually ready to rescue. So they are prepared, they are in different ports, but they actually are now there to go out and save lives at sea. But I guess you all know that the political situation in regards to search and rescue has changed drastically. And of course, we are trying to tackle these difficulties. So for SeaWatch especially, it started in 2018, where a huge criminalization campaign against search and rescue organizations started. So in 2018, almost all the at that time active NGOs were blocked in usually at that time it was Malta, and after a long fight of months and months and months, they were freed. And then in 2019, I'm sure you're aware of the case with Carola Rakete. Also, our ships got blocked again with a big trial that followed. And now in 2020, we have the same problem again. So I like to look back at it in the sense of, like, each summer there is a new problem that comes up, and there is a new strategy by the Italian or the European authorities to actually hinder rescue operations at sea. And at the moment, what we're looking at, what we're fighting, also in front of the court, is that now we have the situation that the Italian authorities stop all the rescue NGOs with their vessels and do what they call security checks, so port state controls with them. And for us, it's very difficult, because what they do is they check every corner of each ship, and then they basically give you arguments why the ship is not safe to sail. They can do that out of legal reasons, and we're not, we respect that, and there is no way we can fight that. But what they're trying to find is reasonings is really absurd. And just to give you a couple of them, I would like to just show you the absurdity of what we're actually having to deal with at the moment in regards to the political level in the Southern European countries. For example, what is one of the main problems that apparently we have on our ship is that the Italian authorities tell us that we have too many life vests on board, because the ship's papers are only showing that there is so many crew. That means that we can only have a certain number of life vests. And the life vests that we have, they are additional, because of course we're prepared for rescue operations. And this is not according to the ship's paper. So this is a difficulty that we are encountering at the moment. We're fighting, as I said. Another second one, to give you the whole picture of this absurdity, is that every ship has a sewage treatment plant. So whenever anybody goes to the toilet, it goes somewhere. Our sewage treatment plant is, of course, there for the crew that we have, so for 22 people. What the Italian authorities are now saying is that the issue lies in the fact that we would actually need to have a sewage treatment plant for over 300 people on board, because this is the rescue people that we sometimes have on board, and this is against the law. So if you would think about the absurdity, that means that actually the size of a tank where the stuff from the toilet goes in is actually deciding if you can take people on board or not. And this is, for me, something that is super inhumane, that we are facing, and that is just something that is basically done by the Italian state instead of other actors. We have been discussing with, for example, the German, because it's a German flag ship, with the German flag state. They don't see these issues, so you can imagine that it's quite a difficult moment for us at the time. But we're continuing to do our best, and for us, it is important to go back out to sea as quickly as possible, and we are really looking forward to do that soon. But I just wanted to give you a kind of a brief overview of what we're dealing with today, and how we're going to continue in the future. So this was it from my side for now.
Thank you so much, Mattea. That was very insightful. You just mentioned or used the term absurdity. When I interviewed your colleague Joe for the Monologues of the Mediterranean Sea, that was also a term used quite often by him. So that leads me to my one follow-up question. You have been on the speedboat yourself. When you were sitting on that speedboat and approaching a boat full of refugees, what were your thoughts then?
I mean, it's a bit odd, right? Because you're usually not in. I mean, I come from research. I'm not a ships person. I have no nautical experience. I mean, I have basically had my trainings with SeaWatch where I got prepared for what I'm doing. But all these people that, especially in the first years, were with SeaWatch, I mean, we're all, volunteers, activists, more from like a political angle, etc. So this is something where you just realize at some point that is, why would you be that person who actually has to do this job? And how and what kind of world do we live that we get out there? As you know, I was in the beginning of my 20s or in the mid of my 20s, go out there and actually do something that would be in the responsible of a state. So you go on these speedboats and you think about that. And this is something, and I use it again, that is so absurd to me, that civil society actors have to step in. They have to become a professional organization at some point. They have to professionalize themselves, and then you basically go in full speed on the water, and all you're looking for is this tiny dot on the horizon that then is this rubber boat that you're looking for, and you're trying to reach it in time. And at that time, for me, it's a bit blank, because I then am super concentrated. There's all these things going through my head, especially in the first time. I remember in the trainings of, okay, so what are the next steps? What am I going to do? And then you come to that boat and you have, people saying, okay, estimated number 150 people. And you think, this is no way 150 people. The boat is tiny. And then you come closer and closer and closer, and you just are so confused by the fact that such a tiny boat holds so many people. And then honestly, you get angry. You just get angry that this exists and that you have to be in that kind of scene, and it's just very unrealistic.
All right, thank you so much for this first round, Thomas, Regina, and Mattea. We start now the second round, which is I will do one or maximum two follow-up questions, and then I will open up the discussion to the audience. I've heard that there are already questions by the audience, so feel free to post them. Feel free to ask them. Thomas, I want to do one follow-up question to you. You already talked about online trainees or online discussion rounds, or to spread the information that hasn't been spread, in your opinion. But you're also doing this in a kind of an online forums or ways. Can you tell us what online versions of information campaign you're doing? I think you're muted, Thomas.
Thank you. So thank you for the question. The online versions that we are doing are going to be including creating discussion forums on social media. on social media, but we realized that we cannot depend on online alone, because we realized that especially when you are working in remote areas, connectivity can be a luxury. And although sometimes internet availability may be there, affordability may be the problem. So you can have it, but you cannot afford it. And so what we have tried to do is to mitigate this problem of internet availability through creation of offline tools. These offline tools are like the respiratory Pi that was introduced before, and also using USSD systems. So the USSD system is kind of automated mobile applications that one can use without necessarily having a smartphone. So with this particular means of sharing information, we are able to, first of all, organize workshops, at the same time share information that we have validated, and we are able to give everyone access to truthful and factual information on various topics, especially on human smuggling and backdoor migration.
Said that in 2017 you stopped the search and rescue operation in the Mediterranean Sea. Then you changed the scope of the activism of your organization to other regions, to other countries. In what way was that a difficult decision for you to do?
Just to clarify, Michael, we didn't change the scope of our organization. The scope of our organization was always and remain today to mitigate the human suffering around the world, and we believe that nobody deserves to die at sea, wherever sea. So for me, it doesn't change until our people dying at sea that are in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Aegean Sea, or in the Bay of Bengal. It doesn't change the scope. We decide to put on hold our mission out at sea because, first of all, we didn't believe, we always rent our assets. We didn't believe of owning the assets. So we never own the ships. We have had two big ships, drones and aeroplane. But we didn't own the assets because we believe that we want to be very our funds need to go on the operation, not just in maintaining the employee and salaries. So this was very important for us to have most of our donation going to the mission. So our mission were always seasonal. When we decided to stop our operation in the Mediterranean in 2017 was because we have been, as I said before, we didn't want to be part of an indirect pushback. At that time, we were having an aeroplane with very sophisticated cameras, and we were sharing our information. This aeroplane was flying all the time. It was not going to be stopped from weather problem. So was a very important asset. And having that type of information then being used for an indirect pushback. So a pushback like from if the people will be taken with our video or our images by the Libyan Coast Guard, this was a very controversial point from our side. So we continue to monitor the advocacy. In the meantime, in 2017, the number of departure, this is very important to stress, shrunk drastically. So we noticed that we were for many weeks out at sea without doing any rescue. And in the meantime, on the other side of the world, there were people crossing by foot and by boats. So we felt that our our work will be more, will make a bigger impact being on the other side of the world, knowing also that when we started in 2014, we were the only NGO out at sea. Instead, in 2017, there were several other sister NGOs like the other NGOs that are now, and there were even much more in 2017. And we knew that with the decrease of departure and the increase of assets out at sea, people eventually will be rescued. However, this is very sad that in 2020, as I said before, and as the colleague of the other organizations stressed before, we are still discussing about this because MOAS created this movement of civil society out at sea because MOAS and the other organization wanted to fulfill a gap that was clearly, that is now clearly should be responsibility of the European states. However, as I said before, Europe is not looking on the side of the search and rescue, is more comfortable in strengthening border and border control. And I wanted to say one more thing that I think is very important. Raising walls or avoiding rescuing the people out at sea will not stop the migration because personally and with the MOAS, we believe that this is not a crisis or a migration crisis, is not a migration crisis. This, what we are facing in the last 7 years, is a crisis of humanity because people, we are human, knowing that there are people out at sea, mother, children, and we do not act or we pretend that this is not happening, we means that we lost our humanity, that us, we have a principle, ethical and moral value as a civil society. And we need to continue to stand for this civil society and this ethical and moral value. And democracy doesn't is not we cannot get for granted democracy. We need to be sentinel. We need to keep on watching the rights of the most vulnerable people.
Mattea, what do you think? How will the work of SeaWatch look like in 2021?
Oh, that's a good question. If I could answer that, I would be very happy. I mean, for us, it is quite clear, right, that there is no way we're gonna back off. So for us, it is clear that we will continue to do the work despite all the political repression. We have made a lot of nice steps in the past that actually, you know, bring us further and further to actually shine a light on what is happening in the Central Mediterranean Sea. And I think 2021 should be the year where, you know, ZAR NGOs should actually be even more heard, be even more in the center stage of any political discussion about migration policies, should be actually hopefully even removed, because then we have a state actor that is there in the Central Mediterranean Sea that will do human rescues that actually are going to disembark people in the European Union and not in any countries such as Libya, for example. So yeah, I hope 2021, I don't think it will happen, but I hope I have a different job then, because this would be the goal at the end, that SeaWatch doesn't have to exist anymore. But actually, to be more realistic, I think that, or I hope that in 2021, we'll be able to look more into, or basically, be more loud about what is happening, be more successful with our advocacy work, and it is continuing like this. And then, of course, 2021 should be the year where as many ships as possible should be operating in the Central Mediterranean Sea, and the repression should be over. But let's see how it goes.
I've just seen that Thomas wanted to add anything, I think.
Yes, so I think I really recommend what these two organizations are doing, because all of them are really looking at survey and rescue. And I think that work is really much needed. But the best case scenario is that they do not have to exist, or they do not exist. So if that could happen, then we could have met a goal of humanity. But unfortunately, that is the way it is right now. And I think this is not driven by just a political will, but rather it's a European narrative of how migration is understood. So if you look at when people talk about African mobility, they talk about migrants in the US, migrants in Europe. But it's in many cases when we in Africa look at migrants coming from Europe to Africa, we talk about expats. So there is a narrative of looking at African migrants or people from developing countries as migrants and limiting them to this particular scope of being migrants. But on the other side, when the European people send people to work in developing countries, they are not sent as migrants, but they are sent or understood to be expats. In some cases, even when they do not have any particular qualifications to do the jobs they are there. So they are going to be volunteers. They are going to be in German, you call them Freiwillige. They are going to be doing Freiwillige Soziales, yeah. So they are not understood as migrants, but they are understood as experts contributing something to those economies. So for these two organizations not to exist, we have to change the narrative to which we look at migrants from developing countries. And if we can change the narrative from the school, from the primary school, and make sure people grow with an understanding that mobility, migration is a human right. And if it is a human right, it has to be supported with the dignity and the respect it deserves. Then we'll be able to not have the organization existing.
All right. I want to now fully open up the discussion. If you are watching this panel and you want to ask some questions to our speakers, feel free to write those questions and I will read the questions to our speakers. Now, I want to start with a question that was asked by one of our viewers to Thomas. And I want to just read this question. Thomas, do you organize workshops for policymakers in Europe to be sure that they are officially not circulating wrong information as an attempt of reducing migration? As you said, the information is also not correct from the official side.
We have not done that, not yet. But that is something that we should be able to say, that when we are designing policies and when we are creating particular tools that are supposed to manage migration, that we have all the stakeholders included. That means we have the NGOs, we have the migrants, we have the experts, we have the diaspora, all of them included, so that we can create a good understanding of what migration is and how to share this information. We do not do that, but we should do it. We should start doing it, and it should not only be left to NGOs as the responsibility of creating understanding on migration and sharing of information, but it should be all the stakeholders that are dealing with the topic of migration.
All right, there's another question that goes to Regina. I will also read that question. My question focuses especially on the UK channel you touched upon. How can we best counter the narrative in the UK that offering safe routes will only encourage more migrants to make the journey across Europe?
Okay. Basically, first of all, when migrants are taking the routes between France and UK, is not the same that we are seeing between Libya and Europe. People are already in Europe, so it's a different environment. First of all, the people that are most of the people that are taking this journey at the moment, we believe are people that are trying to do family reunification. Also, there are situations in which we know very well France has been facing many challenges. Many people are suffering inside France, as well in Greece. We don't need to forget Greece. Greece and France, as Italy, is Europe. So if people are trying to run away or moving to the UK, is because probably they don't find the correct system or the easy system or the integration that they are looking forward. Again, people are moving from Africa to Europe to fulfill their need because they are in search of that missing part that they are trying to find in Europe. So, if they don't find in Italy, they will move to Germany. If they don't find in Germany, they will move elsewhere, because what drives these people to go is the fulfill of their needs, of their happiness, having a future for their children. So, if people in this moment the crossing are higher, it's because there is a problem in France. So I wrote many articles about this on The Guardian and in other papers. I can share with you. Our opinion is that dialogue between France and the UK need to happen. Interview these people, talking with them, understanding what they are looking for. Because we talk about the people, about them, but we do not talk with them. We don't let them explain to us what is the problem. It's very easy if we pass them the microphone and we tell them, what are you searching for? How can we help you? I'm sure that we will come together with the most easy solution for them and for us, in respect of our rules and their needs. Because integration is not unilateral, it's bilateral. Both of us need to integrate with each other. Not just they need to integrate with us, but we need to integrate with them. Unless this will happen, we are talking about the sex of the angels, you know, we are talking about nothing. So this is my answer. I saw another small question up and was about the Mare Nostrum. I don't know if I can spend 2 cents on that, because it's very important, I think. May I? The
Yes, go
question,
ahead, please.
do you want to read the question so people can understand?
Yes, I can read the question. Could you explain more the political reasons behind the end of the Mare Nostrum mission? The operation is now superseded by Frontex Operation Triton. What kind of operational consequences does this shift create concretely?
Just to be clear on this, because sometimes the Operation Mare Nostrum get confused with the European operation. Operation Mare Nostrum was an operation that started in October 2013 and ended in October 2014. Was a one-year operation that was created and paid by the Italians, by Italy, and was to contrast crime out at sea, but was having a large mandate on search and rescue. So, as they were rescuing, they were also controlling the borders and trying to destroy the smuggling chain. So that is very important. That was the only operation. All the other operations, Triton in the Mediterranean and Poseidon in the Aegean Sea, were different operations. Those were European mandate operation, and even if all ship out at sea, if there is a buoy, a vessel in distress, are compelled to rescue, in view of their of their position and or their mandate, was completely different from Mare Nostrum. The consequences were that many people were rescued during Mare Nostrum, and the ships that were out at sea were cooperating with them. There were other missions that continued during these years. There was Mare Sicuro and many other missions. So I think the point here is that first, that was an Italian mission, and the other mission were more European missions with different European mandate.
All right. I also want to encourage you as the panelists to ask questions to your fellow panelists if you would like to. So if you want to, ask anything that you wanted to ask for many years, now it's a good time to do so. Is there anybody who wants to ask something to his or her fellow speaker? Thomas, go ahead, please.
Hi, Regina.
Hi, Thomas.
It's really good work that you guys are doing, and especially with the Rohingya refugees, who were until 2018 the forgotten refugees. That in many countries nobody talked about what was going on with them, and they were deprived of education, of basic access to means, and until last year, 2019, I think, is when the children were allowed access to education. Now, the question is, the education that they are allowed to access is the Myanmar education system and not the Bangladesh education system. So they are taught, but they are only taught the education according to Myanmar education and not to the countries they are now residing. Now, you just mentioned that integration is bilateral. How do we expect to integrate these particular individuals if we still teach them an education system in a country they are not growing up anymore? Do you think there's a way such practices, even from developing countries, can be approached and maybe solved?
First of all, sorry, I was going to talk to you in Italian. First of all, I want to really thank you about this question, Thomas, because since 2015, when we started to look at the situation of the Rohingya, the forgotten stateless people, the worst of the worst, because you are the Nigerian, the Ghanaian, and the Somali, they have a nationality. But the Rohingya, they don't even have a nationality. So for us, it's very dear to me, this topic. Yes, it's true. The problem is that education is very hot and sensible discussion in Bangladesh, because even if I know many people, many of my friends Rohingya that are living, that born in a refugee camp. However, they do not have any nationality. I need to say that perhaps the refugee that arrived in the 80s in Bangladesh, they were under refugee status. The people that arrived in 2018, 17, 18, and 19, and 20 in the last 4 years, they are not under refugee status because they are called displaced people from Myanmar. So, you see, they change the word, but in reality, they are refugees. But the mandate of since 2018 is not in the hands of UNHCR, as it was before in the 80s, but is in the hands of IOM for probably political reasons. With MOAS, we started to, after we managed to treat them and they were in good health, we noticed that education is not just formal education, but can come in several ways. And we noticed the gap of education on responding on crisis. For this, we started to train them, and I will be very happy later on to share with you all our material, and if you want to talk about it, we can discuss further on. We noticed that this education mostly was given to the male. So we started to engage also with the female. In fact, in our water training rescues, you can see there are also many females that are attending this course because in a situation like a monsoon or a large flooding or people, children trying that lose their lives inside these large ponds that are created during the raining season, mothers are those that stay more close to the families. And they are eventually the people that can rescue themselves their own children. Because the numbers inside, for example, the Kutupalong camp is so large that we NGOs or INGOs, we will never manage to rescue them, especially because in the nights, the camps, the NGOs are not there except for ER or primary health care stations. So we felt compelled to explain them how can they save themselves in a case of a landslide, in a case of flooding, how can they transport their people, how they can transport their goods. And this is what we are implementing more and more. I'm very happy to share with you as we speak. Today is Sunday and in Bangladesh we work. It's not a holiday because holiday is Friday and Saturday. My team is delivering course as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have to come to an end in a minute. Actually, I would have one more question to Mattea. Mattea, you alluded to the fact that SeaWatch is doing more and more legal attempts to fight the Fortress Europe. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I think the past has shown a bit that we are basically forced to kind of take a more legal route. And I think it is a sort of strategy for NGOs to kind of, make them go away, make them leave the scene, because it is a really tough route. I mean, small NGOs, I think, is very difficult to actually tackle these different situations. But for example, we've had a couple of things in the past where we actually took legal steps. I mean, we've also had the issue with the case with Carola Rakete, where we clearly at the end went quite a long way on the legal route and won the case. But for example, now what we have currently with the situation of these whole issue of port state controls, as I mentioned before, this is something that is differently implemented by the Italian Coast Guard and is very different from other states in Europe. So for us, it is clear that we will, if it's a long way, we'll do it, but we will go ahead and actually go in front of court and actually turn in an appeal against the port state controls, and are actually trying to make a case and a point where the Italian Coast Guard cannot use this system in the future anymore. And for us, it's quite clear that we need to, at some extent, bring certain things to higher levels. We need to, all work together to make sure that even 2021, that we can still have rescue organizations that are actually able to rescue, and that we just don't all find ourselves in front of the Italian port and are never allowed to leave anymore. And I think there is no, unfortunately, other way than sometimes, fight in front of a court. And I think this is something that is going to come up in the future more and more, because they are very clever with trying to find ways to stop NGOs.
So before I'm handing over again now back to Lika, I want to thank also from my side Thomas, Regina, and Mattea for this very, very interesting and insightful contributions. Thanks for that, and now I'm handing over to Lika.
Yeah, many thanks, Mikhail, and also from my side, big thanks to our panelists for providing such a great and strong ending to our Borders of Fear conference with this panel. Then it's just on to me now to say a few final words about some of the upcoming events that we have at the Disruption Network Lab. So actually, we're very happy to continue also with the workshop by the Migrant Media Network this Tuesday, the 1st of December, where they will be speaking about the relation between migration, technology, and data protection that Thomas talked about briefly as well during this panel. In this workshop, we will try to understand from the perspective of a migrant if it's possible to implement technology in migration management also in a responsible way and with respect to human dignity. So the workshop is currently sold out, but you can still join the waiting list, and we will see when the final confirmations if there's still an option to join this Tuesday. Then, as a closure to our Borders of Fear topic series, we will have a final event on 4th of December, which is this Friday. And this is part of our online conversation series called Disruptive Fridays. So this edition will deal with counter-archives and colonial borders. And it will be an online conversation moderated by Nada Baker, who's running the community program together with me. And in this edition, we will hear from the Foundland Collective, so from Laura and Alexander and Khalia El-Zrakbi, who are working on creating what they call counter-archives. And we will hear from Daniela Ortiz on the relation between borders and colonialism. So that concludes our Borders of Fear topic. But then we have one more, or actually two more events coming up with the Disruption Network Lab later on in December. And this is part of a project that we've been involved with since a few months already, which is called Hate News versus Free Speech. So on the 12th and 13th of December, we are closing off this collaborative project, which we've been working on together with the organization from Georgia called the Regional Democratic Hub, Caucasus. And we've been working there with Maya Talakadze on a program exchange between Germany and Georgia, specifically focused on polarization and pluralism in Georgian media. So on the 12th of December, we will have a live-streamed conference, which is actually our 22nd conference. And there will be 3 panels, one about the situation of polarization and media ethics in Georgia, a panel on misinformation on social media, and a panel on human rights and hate speech. And then as the final event of this project, we will close on the 13th of December with a workshop that will be happening at State Studio here in Berlin. And this workshop is called Anatomy of a Conspiracy Theory. And together with Alistair Alexander, we will go through examples of conspiracy theories and find out how they have been spreading so fast recently, and also what we can do to counter such misinformation. And all the information about these events will be on our website from tomorrow. So feel free to check up there to find all the details and also to sign up. And then, wrapping up really finally for today, I also want to give a big thanks to the amazing team here at the Disruption Lab, which has been running the whole conference weekend. So, of course, first of all, to Tatiana Bazzichelli, who's the artistic director and also the curator of the Borders of Fear conference. To Elena Veljanovska, who's been doing an awesome job on the production this whole weekend and also running a lot of tech checks for this hybrid format. A big thanks also to Nada Baker, who's also here with me and who's been doing the community program, also the workshop today, and also working on the production. Big thanks to Jonas Franke, who's responsible for the amazing design that you've been seeing on the screen and also helping with sharing all the videos and content during the conference. And big thanks as well to Alana Travers, who's been helping out with communication and social media and making sure that a lot of people have been able to find our conference. And finally, also thanks to Claudia Trapp, who's been working with us on the press. And really final, big thanks to Ranav Adhikari of Boiling Head Media, who has been helping us to get the live streams up and running the whole weekend. So, and of course, a thanks to all our online audience that has been watching and participating. And it's been really an awesome weekend to have you all online. And we hope to see you very soon again. So thanks a lot. Thank you.